Hello again, I'm Jim Raymond with the State Recovery Task Force at the Colorado Emergency Operations Center. In Colorado, the State Recovery Task Force is a collection of state departments and agencies that come together after a disaster to move recovery actions forward as quickly and effectively as possible. Volunteers play a key role during and after disasters, but honestly, how to engage volunteers effectively and successfully can be challenging, and a lot of emergency managers don't really know where to start, or worse yet, how to take advantage of all the great experience and benefits that volunteers have to offer. That's why I've invited Kristy Judd to talk about how to effectively engage volunteers in your recovery. Kristy is with an organization working out of the State Emergency Operations Center called Spark the Change. Kristy has been coordinating volunteer efforts successfully for many years. This is a very timely conversation, and I think you'll get a lot out of it and will help your emergency management program be successful. Kristy, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jim, for inviting me. Volunteers are, of course, a great asset for emergency managers to use because they do bring not only experience and knowledge, but also great energy at a time when it's needed the very most.
Well, to get started, I think a lot of people are familiar with COVOAD, the Colorado Organizations of Voluntary Agencies Active in Disasters. But is that the best place to find volunteers?
It's a very good place to start. Colorado VOAD, in partnership with the State Val, run a program around volunteer engagement and donations management that are available to every community at the time of a disaster. So this program not only includes a very effective volunteer registration database, but also messaging newsletters that go out to all the volunteers who sign up that highlight the kind of activities that are needed by the responding agencies.
So it sounds like there's a lot of resources available. What's the best way to get started utilizing volunteers in your organization?
Well, much like any emergency management activity, planning is the most critical step. So what you want to do is make sure that you've done a needs assessment plan first and foremost. That needs assessment plan is going to let you know what you need as far as volunteer activities, what kind of skills you're looking for, when and where volunteers are needed most, and it alleviates the problem of volunteers showing up uninvited, ready to help, or showing up when there isn't someone who can meet them and show them what to do and not have the tools and supplies they need. It also really helps the stress level of emergency managers, knowing that they are using that resource and tool as effectively as they can.
So really you start with the needs assessment.
Yes.
In terms of what it is that you need to accomplish, and then it's a good idea to look and see if the volunteer community can help you meet those needs.
Absolutely. So once you know what you need, the next thing you do is create the kind of positions that you're looking for. And they don't have to be just general labor positions. They can also be skilled volunteers. Mm-hmm. So if you've got folks in your community already who have volunteer management experience, you want to recruit those folks first because they're going to bring the knowledge needed in order to put your volunteer plan together. Once you have those folks and your plan in place, now you can recruit volunteers and they'll know exactly where and when to show up, what to wear, what to bring, what to expect, and you're really taking advantage of the skills and expertise that you have in your community.
Well, I heard you say a couple of things there. One is that volunteer can be much beyond labor. It can include professional services as well. Medical care or maybe legal or some other services.
Even project planning. You know, we, especially in some of our mountain communities in Colorado, have a lot of folks retiring and coming to Colorado, and they have, you might find a CFO or a COO. You might have someone who's done emergency management before but are retired. You certainly are going to find people who've been volunteers before and now have the time and expertise to be able to help you manage that huge core of possible talent that is right there in your own community.
So sometimes I've heard from emergency managers in Colorado, when they have a need, they immediately go and look to try to put in a resource order or purchase that service in some regards. You're saying that they could actually look for volunteers and see if those needs could be met. And the other question that you brought up was, so you should start with a volunteer coordinator? Is that a good place to start?
That's the best place to start Because if you're going to take advantage of those skills, you want to be able to take advantage of them in a way that someone is wanting to offer them. So the goal is meaningful engagement and effective action, right? So you want to make sure that the right work is getting done, that you're not spinning your wheels, and volunteers aren't getting frustrated and just deciding that, gosh, this is too unorganized for me. So bringing in that kind of talent first really helps. We like to recommend that your volunteer corps work closely with your staff so that you can leverage the capacity of the staff. When you invest in your volunteer program first, you'll get a 600% return on that investment. So your staff can do what staff are supposed to do, right, and are trained to do, and then the management of your human capital can be done by a volunteer coordinator.
Okay, that's a lot of opportunity to save money and get some really good work done. What are the next steps in terms of building a volunteer position description? Is that a good idea?
Yeah, so once you've done your needs assessment and you create what volunteers you need, whether they're skilled or unskilled, now you want to communicate that. And that's another time to come back to Colorado VOAD, because we've got a website, we've got a newsletter that goes out. So now when you're trying to recruit the right person out of your community, we can help you do that. You also want to look at your community resources. If you've got a newsletter, social media, whatever your county or community has in the way of messaging, you want to be able to say, hey, now's the time when we need volunteers, and here's how and where you can find out about those opportunities and then sign up.
It seems that volunteers are going to be extremely important as we move through recovery from the COVID-19 and into the future. Where's a good place for people to get more information about either what is involved in a needs assessment or how to effectively engage a volunteer coordinator or manager?
Well, certainly now you all know me. So Spark the Change Colorado is a statewide serving organization, and we do have training classes. We have experts on our team who can walk alongside a community who are trying to develop that volunteer plan from the beginning. Certainly, there are a lot of voluntary organizations who have volunteer coordinators as well. So if you already have one of those agencies active, ask them for some support. But certainly, we're here for anyone who needs volunteer support.
Well, I was surprised to find out the number of organizations that actually make up the Colorado Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters, and a lot of those have touch points into the State Emergency Operations Center through the Voluntary Agency Liaison. So I think there's a lot of opportunity all across the state. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate everything that you have been able to offer and that you continue to do for volunteers in Colorado. Any final thoughts?
Just remember that planning is the most important piece. You don't have to wait until a disaster happens. You can think about what would that look like before the emergency actually is occurring. It's so much easier to plan than respond.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. And thank you, everybody, for your time today. We want to make a special acknowledgement to all of the hard work that's being done by our emergency management community, our agricultural workers, and especially our volunteers in Colorado. We really need you to help us move forward in Colorado. Be safe and be well.